Well, the great Dan Hardy ahead of a big PFL Europe show in Paris next Saturday. Tell us first off, for the people who aren't so well acquainted with the European roster, what fights should we be most excited about heading into this huge show in Paris? Big sold out crowd at the Accra Arena, massive event.
Well, I mean, main and co-main event, of course, very exciting. Main event, Cedric Doumbé needs no introduction. Early in his MMA career, but a legendary kickboxer taking on Jordan Zebo, who's also 4-0, two undefeated fighters. They really don't like one another as well, which makes it a bit more spicy. And then we've got, the Lazy King making his PFL debut in the co-main event, Abdurakhimov, just a lethal grappler, 16-1, drags people to the floor, beats them up. Two-weight champion Aries, very, very excited to see him fight. And to be honest, they kind of distract from the rest of the card because we've got all the playoff bouts as well. We're like Simeon Powell against Air Rami, Dakota Ditchever taking on Cornelia Holm, who's a real tough veteran. For me, the bantamweights are the ones to watch. They're the ones flying under the radar. That for me is the most competitive weight division because any four of those fighters can win. Like Malambo against Nutsi. Malambo is very, very slick, very experienced. He's been at SBG for the whole time that McGregor was coming through his career. Nutsi coming off a wicked first round knockout, very confident in his striking. And then Taleb against Kakarov on the other side, who they had one of the most intense face-offs I've ever seen. Like loads and loads of things to look forward to. It's kind of difficult to pick one, to be honest. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it kind of went without saying that Cedric Doumbé is this massive star coming into PFL. I know that his debut was supposed to be a little while ago and it's been pushed back, but it really is. In terms of the big fights that PFL have put on this year, it's really one of the bigger ones that they've done.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think people are just excited about what the potential is of Cedric Doumbé. Like you look at what he did in kickboxing. What was he, 75-7? 5 title defenses, it's just a legendary career. And there was evolution towards the end of his game as well. We saw him really improve with his hands. And now I think, he's got a whole nother skill set that he needs to learn for MMA. It's reinvigorated his training again. But 31 years old, 4-0 in MMA. If that was anybody else, would be excited. The fact that he's such a world-renowned kickboxer before that makes people even more interested in joining his journey at the start because it kind of feels like something special is happening. And I think people want to get on that journey early, especially because, MMA in France is still quite young as well. And I can say the same thing for Zebo. I think, he's being a bit overshadowed here, but he's an absolute phenom of a grappler and an athlete. I'm very excited to see both of them where they go from here.
You mentioned Franz Malambo as well, someone from my neck of the woods in Castleknock in Ireland, and he's a real, like he's been around a while. I felt like he maybe didn't show us 100% of what he could have shown us last time out, right? But he's definitely a dangerous striker.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, Franz will agree with you as well. He'd had a while out, he'd been out for, what was it, nearly 2 years, was it? And I just think he felt, in his mind, he felt like he was going to walk through everybody and the tournament was going to be quite comfortable for him. And I think in that first fight, he realized that his timing was a little bit off. And, he felt ring rust. He said that himself. And also, he was fighting a late notice replacement who had stepped in for Don Woodin, who's a very tricky individual in Rashid Has. I think the next version of Franz Malambo that we're going to see is going to be levels above the one that was in Berlin. The question is that going to be enough to beat Francesco Nuzzi? And that's why I feel like this bantamweight division's the most interesting for me.
And it's an exciting end to the year in the PFL. Of course, we've got the finals coming up over in the States as well. That you've been there for all of the build up, and you've got some real, like I can't wait to see pretty much all of them. But the heavyweights are going to be massive, and you got I'm really fascinated to see how Larissa Pacheco continues her run. I mean, it seems like with Amanda Nunes retired, maybe she might be the best female fighter in the world.
Yeah, I think so. And, I hope we get the opposition for her so she can prove it as well, because, I mean, she's a scary individual. The fact that she can fight up at 155 and then move down to 145 and potentially get the belt again, she's really proving herself to be one of the best in the world, pound for pound. And then, as you said, the heavyweights, Goltsov and Fajeda, one of those boys could be fighting in Ngannou next year. You've got to wonder how motivating that is for them, because that's a big opportunity and a big payday. And they're both more than capable as well. I mean, you look at Goltsov, he's a slick striker. He's got a wicked jab. He's got loads of experience. Then you look at Fajeda, who's just a giant of an individual. You know, he moves through range very quickly. You know, and that's not mentioning the likes of Sadibou C and Aubin Mercier. And, you know, we've got some really, really good fights to look forward to.
You obviously travel all around the world commentating on these shows. And then, of course, your wife fighting as well around the world. Will you be in Saudi Arabia at the end of October for this massive Francis Ngannou fight?
I don't know. I hope so, but I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. I'm open to it, but we'll see how the cards fall. It would certainly be an incredible event to be at. I mean, you know, just the press conference alone in London was amazing. You know, that you can really tell they're going to pull out all the stops, and it's going to be something quite spectacular.
Does Francis have a shot? Realistically, is there any chance he wins this fight?
I mean, of course, it's a fist fight, but we all know it's a very, very, very slim chance. You know, he's got a lot of work to do to get close to Tyson Fury and land one of those power shots. You know, I think the unpredictability of Francis is one of his assets. And I think if he's able to, you know, intelligently work around the jab, which he might be able to get some information from, you know, from Mike Tyson for that, really good at fighting taller boxers, getting inside the jab. You know, if Ngannou can get some of those peekaboo skills and get inside that jab, then potentially he can land something. But we also know that Tyson Fury can take a hell of a shot as well. I mean, not many people are getting up from one of those punches from Deontay Wilder, and we don't know how comparable Deontay Wilder's power is to Francis Ngannou. So we might be finding out soon.
It's definitely like people. I guess the comparison is obvious between Mayweather and McGregor, but I think what works in Francis' favor is first off, like that old adage about heavyweights, and also like Fury has been down before. He's had fights where he struggled for. Like Mayweather was so dominant for so long, whereas you know Tyson has been hit and he's been down like what 5-6 times from Deontay Wilder. So he can, if Francis can land within those 10 rounds, there is definitely a case to be made.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing is as well, because you've seen Tyson go down, you've got that visual in your head. You know, you can draw upon that and you can replace Deontay Wilder standing over him with Tyson Francis Ngannou, and you can see it in your head. But the reality is, like, there's a height and reach difference. Deontay Wilder's experience difference. He's craft at landing those punches, even though they aren't necessarily the most straight and crisp of punches all the time. Like, it's a different problem entirely for Francis Ngannou to solve, and this is where his unpredictability will come into play. Like Conor McGregor beating Mayweather was a long shot, much longer, because he doesn't have that heavyweight power, and also because Mayweather is not only one of the best boxers offensively in the world, but defensively probably sets the standard. You know, it was going to be much more difficult for McGregor to land on Mayweather, and I do think that Ngannou is going to be able to land. It's just a question of whether he can land cleanly, and if Tyson gets back up again, like The Undertaker.
How do you deal with all this travel? It seems like in your post-fighting career, it's been considerably more crazy than it was when you were actually competing, and you're always somewhere else in the world. How do you physically keep up with it all?
It's a good question, my friend. I might crash and burn one day, but honestly, you know, the love of MMA keeps me going. You know, I like to be present at these events. I get a lot of excitement and energy from them, and to be around the fighters and, you know, to kind of share in their journey a little bit. That's awesome. And, you know, I sleep 8-9 hours a night, and I drink as much water as I can because my wife's always telling me I've got to drink more water. So, you know, I'm doing my best to keep myself moving and lubricated, but I do have to slow down from time to time. I'm a little bit run down now. I'm not sure whether you can tell, but I'm getting it out my system, ready for Paris Fight Week.
And she's fighting some point towards the end of the year. I don't know if anything's announced or official yet, but I know that if you look on her Tapology page, it says there's a fight. I think they've got the venue wrong. They may have the date wrong, but it says that she's back out there before the end of the year.
Yeah, we're ready to start putting in the work again. She's stayed very consistent from her last fight. She's growing technically very, very quickly, and it scares me how quickly she's growing, because her capabilities are far beyond what I was ever capable of. I'm just trying to give her as much as I can, you know, because she learns so fast. Training camp starting, and that's a very, very exciting time. I feel like I'm starting training camp as well, but she'll be the only one punching me in the face, fortunately.
When she's fighting, is the reception for you backstage frosty, or what's the deal there? Like, is it like, are you, or is it just kind of a standard? Like, I remember you'd see like Ben Askren back in the day would come in and corner people, and it'd be a bit awkward. And then, you know, maybe like Antonio McKee or something like that. Like, are you persona non grata, or is it kind of fine backstage now?
It could be a little frosty at times. This honestly, the vast majority of people, it's good to see them. You know, they're all friends of mine, good colleagues. I worked with most of them for, you know, sometimes 10 years. They're good people. They work hard. They're on the UFC train and they just follow it around the world. And, you know, I used to see them regularly, and it's nice to bump into them again from time to time. Occasionally, you know, there are a couple of people that could be a little bit frosty, but that's to be expected. The unfortunate thing for them is that it's MMA and I'm just not going anywhere. Like I live and breathe in this world. So I think if they were hoping to get rid of me, they're very sorely mistaken. But I'm not there to cause any trouble. I'm there to corner my wife and support her. It's that for me is in the past now. Like I'm just not interested in that anymore. I'm back on the stage of being a UFC fan again. I just love it again. And to be able to work for the PFL at the same time as being an MMA fan, I'm in the best spot.
Is PFL the number 2 promotion in the world at the moment? Is it far and away now, right? Just right behind the UFC?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, you know, the roster's growing constantly. We've signed a couple new fighters this week, which the news will be breaking soon. And you know, just from the inside, watching the speed at which it's moving. Yeah, absolutely. There are great organizations around the world. As I said, you know, I'm an MMA fan. Octagon are doing incredible things. I always like to tune in for one championship, even if they're doing the you know, the small gloves Muay Thai events and stuff. Yeah. I watch as much as I can. But PFL, I feel like we're doing something different, and the consistency that we're bringing to these fighters' career and the money that we're putting on the table as well compared to everywhere else, that's what's going to make the difference. And that's what's going to keep us in this position at number 2 right now.
Lots of superstars involved. I mean, Amanda Serrano coming over, Clarissa Shields. I mean, the boxing crossover is unbelievable. There's a chance maybe his MMA return, he's the lineal heavyweight champion of the world, Francis Ngannou, when he comes back. But it does seem like there's a real crossover happening, and something a bit unique that maybe you don't get in the UFC, where these boxers are willing to come over and do it in the cage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, the thing is that the UFC have built a business model which works really well for them. And but there's not a great deal of flexibility to it, right? You know, it's the same format with the same people. You get the same narratives and the same embedded with the suitcases going around at the airport. You know what I mean? It's like the consistency of it is it's almost comforting, to be honest. Yeah. It's quite relaxing. Whereas the PFL, that like the world's our oyster. We can kind of go in whichever directions we want. You know, signing Jake Paul and supporting him with what he's doing, signing Francis Ngannou and supporting him, signing the likes of Amanda Serrano and you know, Savannah Marshall. I think it just shows to people that we're open for business, right? If you're a combat sports athlete and you're interested in, you know, dedicating yourself to making some money and having some good fights, then the PFL's got you know, got good options for you. And you know, like a good example is MVP, right? Who knows what's happening with that guy, but he's a superstar. But depending on what he does will depend on how free he is to make his own decisions. And he's a great boxer. Like, who would not want to see him box Jake Paul or Logan Paul? That'd be a huge fight for him. But then he could cross back over into mixed martial arts and carry on doing what he's even better at. You know, the options are open in PFL, and I think that's exciting for people.
Speaking of Jake, do you think he's actually going to do the cage fight next year?
Yeah, I think he will. Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I think, you know, I saw him getting into it with his brother on the podcast the other day. And you know, like, to me, Jake is coming across as like, I am doing this. This is what I'm doing. I'm a boxer now. When he crosses over into mixed martial arts, he's already got that wrestling background from, was it Iowa he wrestled out of?
Ohio.
Ohio. There we go. And the thing is, as well, he's got the money, right? If you don't have to do anything else of what you want to do and you've got the money to fund it, you can bring in the best people from around the world. Like, why would you not want to surround yourself with great fighters and coaches that you can learn from? He's on an expedited path no matter what he's doing because of his money. And I think that if he does cross over to mixed martial arts, he brings a load of unique eyes to the sport, and people will be tuning into PFL that have maybe never heard of it up until Jake Paul put it on his Instagram.
You obviously were a great fighter. Imagine, though, if you were getting millions for your first amateur fight, how good you would have been. Like, if those were the resources you had at your disposal when you first started, I mean, the sky would have been the limit, right?
Yeah, hey, I may have finished my credit in I may have finished my career in a positive as opposed to negative credit. That's the like if I look back to all the years that it was costing me to be in training camp and doing fights and stuff, then you know people would think I was crazy. People did think I was crazy, but we do it because we love it. The money coming into the sport now is a really really good bonus because it's going to elevate everybody, their lives, their enthusiasm for the sport, their ability to dedicate themselves. It's everything's going the right way right now. It's good. It's a good time to be a part of combat sports.
You like Jake? You think he's good for the sport?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think he's a very clever individual. I think he's determined. And the event, the Diaz Paul
That's
event was
crazy.
like nothing I'd ever experienced. It was insane. It was like even like Sean Porter and Alicia Baumgartner were there, and they were like, what is this? Like it's the prelims and the place is stacked.
Yeah.
It was incredible. He's doing good things for combat sports. I don't know how anyone could pick fault unless they're doing it out of jealousy because of the money he's making.
Do you like the other guys like KSI, all those guys, or do you think Jake's like a little bit different?
For me, Jake's a little bit different. He seems to be quite focused and really pushing it. The other guys seem to be doing it far more for the opportunity and the the recognition that comes with it. I have heard that KSI is a very dedicated, in training though. He's there all the time.
He'd want to be
But
against Tommy.
well, exactly this. He has to take it serious. But if we see, we look at the KSI that fought Logan Paul under pro rules, he was very very wild and very reckless, and that's where Tommy Fury is going to be able to just kind of keep him at a distance and manage that range. I don't count any of these guys out. And sitting so close to the Jake Paul Nate Diaz fight, it was obvious that nothing that Nate hit him with hurt him. You know what I mean? Like there were a couple of times he was flustered out of volume from Nate, but at no point did Nate land one shot. And Jake was like, what was that? But there were a few thudding shots from Jake, and I was surprised that Nate stayed standing. Like he's a young athletic kid. I think he could do what he likes, to be honest.
Think KSI has any shot against Tommy or no?
I think he has a shot, of course. Tommy can be a bit stiff and a bit predictable. He has got decent boxing fundamentals, but that's partly what makes him predictable. He's definitely not the craftsman, the wizard that Tyson is. But he is training and dedicated. He's going to come in well conditioned and in shape. And I think, to be honest, with the experience that he got from fighting Jake Paul, he's going to have learned a lot of good lessons that he can apply against KSI. Establishing his jab and managing the distance so that right hand keeps falling short. That's going to be the main part of his game plan. And Jake Paul was the same thing. Little jab, big right hand over the top. He's kind of had a good warm up for a KSI style fight, which means KSI's got to bring something different.
What about Logan and Dillon? You interested at all? And have you any interest? I mean, that's a crazy,
I mean,
like nothing we've ever seen before type fight.
Exactly that. I mean, you kind of got to think, well, Logan's the bigger fighter. He's probably better conditioned physically. He's got a better jab than DILLON DANIS based on what we've seen from DANIS's limited MMA career. Like, and these boys are driven. That's something else that you've got to say about the Paul brothers. No matter what they're doing, they're going 100 miles an hour at it. Like DILLON DANIS keeps dipping his toe in, and there's the website that Logan Paul set up, the Dildo Danis one, where he's where it's the countdown from how long, well, count up from the last time he fought.
Yeah. 4 years ago.
Great psychological games. I love this stuff. I just hope the fight comes to play and they both really try to hurt one another, because you just don't want the build-up to be brilliant and then the fight at the end to be lackluster. And I don't think we're going to get that from Tommy Fury and Jake Paul. Tommy Fury and KSI. But Logan Paul might stay behind his jab and Dillon might not do anything. He might just not want to get knocked out.
Unfortunately, the way Dillon wins is probably getting as ugly as he can, using his more than his fighting ability, his toughness and that kind of like he's gonna have that's how he wins, right?
Guillotine. That's the best way. He's got to go the Nate Diaz route and get the moral victory of a guillotine in the later rounds.
Well, one event that definitely won't be boring is PFL Europe in Paris on September 30th. Got a lot of great fighters. I mean, shouts to Dylan the Nuke Took, John Mitchell, all my Irish brothers. And Dan, I think it's going to be a very, very exciting night of MMA September 30th. Thank you so much for chatting.
No worries. I hope you enjoy the event on the 30th. It's going to be a wild one, and then I'll be seeing you in Dublin in December.
Yes, sir. See you then. Bye-bye.